My name's Nathan Vanzini, and welcome to Catching Steam. In today's activity, it's all about viruses. Not only viruses, we're going to see how well your class can mitigate the spread of a virus. So what's going to happen is one student is going to be sick in your class. Obviously, we're not going to be using real viruses. We're going to be using some really cool chemicals. But either way, one student's going to be sick. This virus is going to spread within the class, and you're going to see if your class can develop strategies to not only mitigate how many students get sick, but to see if they can make it so by the end of the class, no student is sick. So there's a lot of really cool strategies that you can use in your classroom that really replicate what they do in the real world. But in either way, it's a great activity, whether you want to go into biology, talk about the R0 value and how viruses work, or maybe you just want an activity to do for a day or two to help students learn some really cool scientific concepts or to practice some scientific thinking. Either way, this is a great activity. So if this sounds interesting to you, stay tuned. Now, before I get too caught up in the activity itself, I want to just recommend two other videos to you. One is if you like the chemical reaction aspect of this, on how the phenolphthalein, the indicator, turns pink and how it can go back to clear and so on. I really recommend checking out this video. Now, if you're in a biology classroom and you think that this is a really good activity to introduce viruses, I actually recommend my other video before you actually do this. Because in that video, it's going to talk about how cells work and all the different jobs of cells and how viruses can help hijack those cells to help make more viruses. So this activity is great right after that if you want to go into viruses. This is the path I normally take. I normally go learn how cells work, learn how viruses work, and then learn how viruses can mutate, and then you can go on into mutations, evolution, things like that afterwards. But either way, this is how the activity works. So you need to count how many students you have in the classroom and make sure you count the exact right number. I made this mistake a couple times, and you're going to end up needing to have 1 cup for each student and put a little bit of water in each cup. Now, I'm going to recommend that you use distilled water. If you've seen my previous video, you know that tap water can turn phenolphthalein slightly pink already, and we don't want that. So if you go to test this and you take your tap water and you put this chemical in, I'm going to talk about later, and you put it in here and it turns pink, then you know that it's not going to work. This activity isn't going to work with your tap water. So what you could do is you could take your tap water and put a little bit of vinegar in it to make it so it works a little bit better. But to avoid all of that, you just get some distilled water, and you just need to give each student a cup with a little bit of water in it. You cannot be full. It needs to be less than half full for this to work. Honestly, the less water they have, the better and the longer it works, because eventually these chemicals get so diluted they stop working. But what else you're going to need is this chemical called phenolphthalein. It is really inexpensive. It's between $20 and $30 online, and this will last you for years and years and years. Like I said, it comes in a powder form, and you take this powder and you have to dissolve it in rubbing alcohol. So I labeled this one with a pink Post-it note, but this is my rubbing alcohol container with just probably half a teaspoon of phenolphthalein. And now this is going to be my virus. So after that, I have a virus, and the only other thing I'm going to need is a base. So in this case, I used ammonia. I put a little bit of ammonia in this glass container with a dropper. You can just put in a separate cup, however you want to do it. I recommend diluting it quite a bit because it doesn't need to be that strong. It's just going to make your classroom smell if you have an open bottle of ammonia, things like that. So I just recommend a little bit of ammonia in here, put the rest with water, and this is set. One other thing I'm going to recommend is another bottle of rubbing alcohol. This is going to help mitigate some issues later, and you'll see what I mean later. So here's the activity itself. What you're going to do is you're going to have all the students close their eyes, put their heads down, and make it so nobody's looking. You're going to take this phenolphthalein and you're going to put it in one of the containers, just like that. Now, once you kind of stir it around a little bit, they won't be able to tell, you're not going to be able to see any difference between this one or any of the other containers. But this one now has a virus in it. So what's going to happen here is, like I said, mix it around, make it so nobody can see it. And then each student is going to pick out one cup. So they're going to take a cup, they're going to take a cup, and then students are going to walk around, and we're going to start off with an R0 value of 3. So what that means is one person gets 3 people sick. So how that works is they're going to take their cup, pour it into here like that, and they're going to pour it halfway back. So if this person was sick, so was this person. Now, in this case, neither one was sick, but just to show you another example, so this one we have the phenolphthalein in here. You pour your whole cup in here, you pour half of it back, and now both of these students are now sick. But you can't really see that they're sick. So what's going to happen after every student shares with 3 other students, so they swap cups with 3 other students, then the students get to decide how they want to use their test. Now, you as a teacher, you can start changing the rules however you want. Some students are really smart and they end up only sharing with people at their table. So you can tell them, hey, you need to start sharing with people not at your table, or however you want to do it. But afterwards, they get a test. I'll start off with 2 tests, 3 tests, depending on how big the class is. Remember, you want to make it difficult for them at the beginning. Let this virus have a chance to spread. But what's going to happen is a student is going to take their cup and they're just going to pour a little bit into this cup like that. So they still have their container. We're not going to dump anything in their container itself. They're just going to pour a little bit into a separate container. And then from here, this student, let's say, pours a little bit in there, and this student pours a little bit in here. So it's going to look like that. Then they're all going to go back to their seats, and this is going to happen in the front of the classroom. So everyone is sitting down. They all swapped their cups. 3 people came up here to do their test. And now you're going to take the ammonia. So remember, there's phenolphthalein dissolved in one of these cups, and now there should be at least 4 cups, but more than likely more, because, if I share with one person, that person shares with 2 other people, so on and so forth. But what's going to happen, you're going to take your phenolphthalein, and you're just going to put a couple drops in here, and nothing happens. Put a couple drops in here, and as you can see, it turns pink. So now we know this person is infected, and this person is not. So I could put in this cup too, but we know that one's good. So at this point, students need to decide who they want to quarantine, and who do they want to keep going on. So you can let students quarantine 3, 4, 5 people, however you want to do it. And the people who quarantine are going to come up front and they're going to dump their water out into your sink or bucket if you don't have a sink. And then they're going to rinse out their cup. So maybe take a little spray bottle of water, just give it a spray, wipe their cup out, and then they're going to get some fresh water. So now they know they have a clean cup of water, and they're going to just sit out that round. So while all the students are swapping 3 cups, they're getting a clean cup with clean water, and then they're going to go sit down. So now at this point, students get to come up, and then they get to have more tests again. So they end up, having 3 tests, 4 tests, however you want to do it, and then they get to, move on from there. And by the end of it, if they're good, they should have quarantined everyone that is sick, and then no one is sick anymore. But this is a lot more complicated than it seems, especially because it just takes one person to mess it up and get everyone sick. So let me talk about a couple strategies I've seen students use, and then I'm also going to give you another tip too, because students, they grab their cup and they smell it right away, and if they smell they can't smell the phenolphthalein, but because it's dissolved in rubbing alcohol, they can smell the rubbing alcohol. So what I'll do before the students, take their cups is I'll take some rubbing alcohol and I'll just pour a little bit in a bunch of cups. So that way they all smell like rubbing alcohol. Other strategies I've seen is students, like I said before, they'll just work with one table and they'll only try and share with one table, or boys will only share with boys, girls will only share with girls. And then from there, they can decide, hey, are the boys sick? Are the girls sick? And then after that, they can, they can quarantine. Let's say the girls were sick, then they can quarantine, 5 girls, and then just bring 5 of them to the boys' side, and then just do that a few rounds, and then eventually everybody's good. Or if they don't think about it like that, I've just seen students say, hey, we're all quarantined, we're good, so let's just all kind of come up with, our own circle and just share with each other. So now only quarantined people who were previously quarantined can now share with each other. Or someone who just tested negative can also share with us. So now you get a circle that just keeps growing of people not getting sick. It's actually very difficult for students to win this. Unless they come with a really good strategy. I feel like there's always 1 or 2 students that want to mess it up, which is fine because, that happens in the real world too. There's always situations where, 1 or 2 people maybe don't follow protocol, and then a lot of other people get sick because of it. So this also demonstrates, like I said, the R naught value, and feel free to change it because the R naught value is constantly fluctuating. So I picked R naught value of 3 because it's still relatively contagious, but it's not, crazy like measles. Measles can be up to like 18. 1 person gets 18 people sick. There's no way you're going to mitigate that. While the flu can, be 1.2 to 2, COVID could be, 2 to 3, but it's just constantly changing depending on, what the real world scenario is. So feel free to change your R naught value as well. But for the most part, after this, you can go 5, 6 rounds or so. Eventually, this phenolphthalein starts to get very diluted, and then it kind of stops working after that. But when you're all done, let's say after 5 rounds or 6 rounds, you can go to every single person and give them a couple drops to every single person and see how many people are sick at the end of class. Hopefully I explained this video well, hopefully I explained this activity well. This is great for students to really start working together, start developing other strategies. A couple really good websites for simulations of this. And it talks about, different strategies like social distancing versus masks, doing both, traveling versus not traveling. And it also has changing the R naught value or how contagious a disease is. There's a lot of different things that you can change, and I'll put the website for that below. I'll also put the website or a link to the phenolphthalein below as well. But if you haven't yet, check out these other videos. They're going to be very helpful if you're either doing chemistry or biology. But if you have any other questions, please let me know in the comments. And thank you very much for sticking around.